All right, let's get started. So the thing that we want to do is we want to write two functions, and I'm just going to zoom my code out a little bit. Okay, so this toggle die hold function is one of the functions we'll need to write, and this roll dice function is the other function we'll need to write. As always, I am going to put my name and a description at the top. And then now we can get started. So if we look over here, this toggle die hold is receiving a number, and that number corresponds with this ID, and you can see that on each of those lines. So I need to write toggle die hold such that it takes one of those numbers. So I'm going to write function toggle die hold, and I'm going to accept an ID, and I'm going to adjust based on what that ID says to do. So if we come back over to the instructions, it says we should accept a parameter called ID. We've done that. Now we need to access the corresponding image element for the die and toggle the attribute data active. So the attribute data active is either storing true or false. And it says here that it starts as true. And we can actually confirm that. So data active starts as true. So all of those are true. So what we want to do is we want to access the element based on the ID. To do that, we're going to say document.get element by ID. We're going to pass in the ID that we received. And then we're going to get attribute, not animations, get attribute. And the attribute we want is data active. And then once we've got that, we want to store it in a variable. I am going to put a semicolon at the end of that line. All right, so let's create a variable called let current active status equal grabbing that attribute. Once we've got that attribute, we want to toggle it. So we'll say let new status equal the current active status. And if the current active status is um, if the current active status is true, then we want to set it to false. Otherwise we want to set it to true. So basically we're saying if it is true, set it false. If it's false, set it to true. And we do need to actually reapply that. So we're going to say document.get element by ID. We're going to access the ID. We're going to call set attribute. The attribute we want to set is data active. And what do we want to set it to? We want to set it to the new status. Great. Okay, let's just go test this to make sure it works. So we're going to come to our die roller. I'm going to inspect the page. I'm going to right click here and click inspect so that it pops open my image. All right, so it has the data active to equal to true. If I click it, oh, I had a debug point. Um, so it has data active equal to true. If I click it, nothing happened. Let's check the console. Um, okay, so let's check our logic. If something doesn't work the way we expect, we will want to put a breakpoint. So I'm going to come to sources, going to click on script.js. I'm going to put a breakpoint here, and I'm going to click the die. Okay, so our current active status, it's going to get that attribute. If we hit next, our current active status is true. True should be slightly equal to true, not equal on types, but it has it has quotes around it. So if we make this comparison, they should be equal. So the result of new status should be false. We'll hit next, and the result of new status is true. Hmm. Current active status is true, and we made, hmm. Well, we know that the true comes back in quotes, so let's just go adjust our logic there. Um, so we're going to say if current status is exactly equal to the text true, then we want to set it to false. Otherwise, we want to set it to true. We're going to remove our breakpoint, hit continue, reload the page, come to elements, click the die, and now it's adjusting. It's going from true to false and false to true. So now our logic works. Let's look at the next step. The next step is to either add or remove the held class from the class list. The class should be held if data active is false. The class should not be held if data active is true. So I'm just going to copy this so I don't have to toggle back and forth. And I'm going to put it in here. Okay. So new status is going to be either true or false. And the new status is going to be what the element currently has as its status. So we can use new status in this if statement. So we'll say if, and it says if the class should be held if data active is false. So if new status, so we'll say if new status because we're checking if it's true. If it's true, the class should not be held. Well, one of the ways you can edit classes is you can say document.getElementById. Once you've got the ID, then you can access the class list. What that does is it takes all of the CSS classes that are listed out here and it converts it into a list that you can add and remove from. Because this is a custom built list, you have to use their built-in methods. One of those built-in methods is add, and one of the built-in methods is remove. So you can add and remove classes. So if the class is true, it should not contain the held class. So we're going to remove the held class. Otherwise, we're going to add the held class. Let's go see if that worked. And it did. We can see that the class is expanding to have held, and then it's being removed when we click off of the die. So that correctly works. We can now toggle the class. And I should probably have some comments in here. So I'm going to say grab the data active attribute and toggle it. And that will do all of that. And then here we'll say apply the held class accordingly. Cool. So we've done part of it. Now we can toggle these die. But what we want is we want to roll all of the ones that are still active. And if we look at the instructions, it says generate a random number for each die that has the data active equal to true. Update the source and alt attributes of the image accordingly. So if we look, the alt says die and then the number presently showing, and that's so that a screen reader can tell someone what face is currently showing on the die. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to write this roll the dice function. So we'll say function roll the dice. And we need to access all of them that have data active equal to true. Well, one of the easy ways to do this is to use query selector all. And we can pass in a CSS selector. And I'm going to select based on attribute. And I'm going to select where data active is true. Because I want all of the ones where it's true. And I'm going to put a single quote so that I can have the double quotes inside of the selector. Okay, so that should get me a list of all active die. So I'm going to say let all active die or dice equal all of those elements. So it should come out and it should grab each of these image tags, except for the ones that are false. Then what I want to do is, if we come look at the instructions, I need to generate a random number and update the source and alt attributes of the image accordingly. So I'm going to say for let die of all active dice, and then I'm going to say let num equal math.floor, math.random, and I'm going to multiply it by 6 because this will give me a number between 0 and 5. And if I add 1, that'll give me a number between 0 and 6. Then I want to take the die, and I want to set attribute. What attribute do I want to set? Well, I want to set its source. And what do I want to set its source equal to? Well, right now, the source is images/one.png, and that shows the one die face. So if I want to follow that same pattern, then the die face I want to show is images slash whatever number I rolled .png. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a template string here, and I'm going to say images slash, and then I'm going to put in num, and then I'm going to put .png. So that will update its source attribute. And if we look at its alt attribute, I'm actually just going to copy one of these. It says die and then the number that was rolled. So we're going to say die.set attribute alt, and we want to set it equal to, and instead of saying die one, we're going to say die and then the number we rolled. Okay, that should roll the dice, all except for the ones that are not active. So let's just come over and test that. So if I click, I'm gonna hold this one and I'm gonna click roll the die. And it says roll dice is not defined. And it's because this function that it calls on the on click is called roll dice, and I named mine the wrong thing. I called it roll the dice. So I'm gonna update my function name, come back, hold this first one, click roll the dice. All of the others changed. Roll the dice, and I'm gonna pin that one, and pin that one, pin that one, and now I've got all the dice that match. And so let's just double check our instructions. We generated a random number. We updated source and alt. Let's just make sure source and alt are correct. This is die one. This is die object HTML element. Ooh, okay. So we updated the alt incorrectly. So we're going to come here. I put die and I should have put num, because die is an HTML element because this query selector grabs HTML elements, stores them in all active dice. Die gets pulled out of all active dice, which means die is an HTML element, and I put the wrong one here. So we'll save that. We'll reload this page. I'll click that. I'll click roll the die, and it updated them. So this one says alt die 1 and has the correct image showing. So we've now correctly updated source and image. Everything is working as expected, so we just need to add some comments. So I'm going to say grab all active dice and up, roll the dice and update source and alt. And if we save that, we are done.